Hi guys, how you doing? It is early. This is Ben, your business loan guy. Ohio gozaimasu, buenos dias, and whatever other way you can say good morning. I'm going to say good morning. Anyway, so we had some bulletins that came out yesterday, especially concerning the PPP. There was a new frequently asked question that came out yesterday. I'm going to go ahead and link. I'll put a link in this video. I'm also going to link a video that JJ, the CPA, did, kind of going over all of it. I'm not going to really go over it here. There wasn't really anything in it that I wasn't already kind of aware of. There was a little bit of clarification, but there's some things that you definitely want to maybe give to your CPA, especially if they're trying to figure out your paperwork to submit for a PPP loan. So the other thing that came out today was on the EIDL. Something very interesting. So apparently, how it was sold initially was that it was a $10,000 grant. So you can apply for a loan up to $2 million. And while you were applying for that loan, there was a grant for $10,000 that they were supposed to wire to you in a few days. I've heard different varying estimates as to when you're supposed to get it. Well, that actually came out maybe more than a week ago, and I don't know of anybody, and I don't think there's anybody that's gotten a dime, so which isn't a surprise. I actually didn't expect, I wasn't upset about it at all. When I applied for mine, I didn't expect really to happen anytime soon because I understand how the government is. I understand how this is going to roll out and how inundated the SBA was going to be, so I knew that there were going to be delays. But they kind of switched a little on us today. Basically, what they're saying now is that because the verbiage does say, if you actually look it up in the law, it says up to $10,000, that there can be an advance up to $10,000. Now what they're doing is they're changing it to $10,000 per employee up to $10,000. And basically, people that are self-employed, like myself, can expect $1,000. So to me, they kind of changed the whole thing. That to me is not kind of the same. That's not the way that it was designed to me. That's not the way that it was portrayed. But apparently now we are getting $1,000 if you're self-employed, and if you have 10 employees or more, you'll get up to $10,000. Now, whether you get it or not, whether it comes into your bank account or not, I don't know. So we'll see. Now there are people just complaining to high heaven to the SBA right now. Because that's not the way that it was portrayed to us, how it was supposed to happen. So if you would like to contact the SBA, voice your concerns, or contact your senator or a representative, you may want to do so because, like I said, that's not what necessarily the law says, and it's definitely not the way that it was put out there and advertised. So now you're probably, if you're self-employed like myself, you're probably not getting $10,000. You're probably getting $1,000, if anything at all. So we'll see. Maybe things will change, but as of right now, that's what the word is. Okay. Then also late. Let's see if I can grab it here. Also late or yesterday. Now I'm sure, as you guys know, this has been a cluster. Okay. That's putting it mildly and nicely. And I'm not surprised. I know a lot of people are very upset, but when you pass a bill and try and implement it a week later, no one's ready for it. Okay, so now banks and certain banks, and this is something that's in the news, Wells Fargo is no longer taking applications. So, and then other banks are limiting their exposure and then also putting additional rules onto who they'll accept. And look, it's within their right if that's what they want to do. Wells Fargo's limited their exposure to $10 billion, and I believe they're at that number now. So if you are a Wells Fargo customer and you've been waiting for a PPP, or if you were self-employed and you were waiting for the 10th to go ahead and to submit your application, well, you're basically in the same boat I was last week. You don't have a bank. You have to find somebody else to go ahead and fund your deal. So now most banks aren't taking outside applications, but when I say most, it's because there are banks out there, they're the smaller community banks that are taking applications. But here's the thing. If Wells Fargo is limiting their exposure to these loans, and I understand why, because they're not very, from a bank lending standpoint, they're not very attractive. Okay, with 1% yield or 1% interest rate, and because there probably isn't going to be anybody on the secondary market that's going to be interested in these really, it's going to be a problem. Okay, so because they're limiting their exposure to these and not taking up any more applications, if things stay the way they are, I can totally see all the other major banks basically doing the same thing, saying, okay, we've had enough of these. We don't want any more. Okay. And then the smaller banks will probably do the same too, or just stop taking applications altogether. So we may have a problem here. I can foresee, a lot of different lenders, a lot of different banks out there just not taking these loans anymore. So I think that's something that the Federal Reserve realized, because they put out a tweet. It was a short tweet, but I'll go ahead and read it to you if I can. Basically, they tweeted out yesterday, to facilitate lending to small businesses via the Small Business Administration's Paycheck Protection Program, the Federal Reserve will establish a facility to provide term financing backed by PPP loans. Additional details will be announced this week. So what's probably going to happen is the Federal Reserve is just going to go ahead and buy these assets from banks. So, which honestly, I thought that's the way it was supposed to be to begin with. But what banks are worried about is, because they have these unattractive loans and they don't even know how much of a loan they really need to take at the moment, because what's supposed to happen is you go in, you apply for the loan, you get the funds, you use the funds towards payroll costs. At least 75% of it needs to be for payroll costs and 25% needs to be for other expenses. And they really need to change that back to what was originally out there, that they could use it for payroll or any of the other expenses, because what's going to happen is it's going to force banks to take on these loans, because if you don't have that much payroll and you spend as much as you can, and you have something left over, then you're stuck having to take a loan or give money back. On top of that, it's also stopping people from taking these loans, because they figure, well, they don't have any payroll. And as I know a lot of people that actually are not wanting to do a PPP loan because they don't want to take on any more debt. And if they can't get it forgiven, there's really no point to them, because there's only so much rent that they can pay. They have no employees. There's no payroll costs there. So there's only so many expenses. So they're going to have to take on a pretty big amount. And even though they can give the money back, they just don't want a chance that something goes wrong, that they get stuck with something. They're just, which is understandable. Okay. They just don't want to take on any more debt. So what's probably going to happen here, at least this is what I'm going to have, either one of two things. Either the SBA is going to start taking these directly, which wouldn't surprise me, because a lot of the banks that I'm talking to, all they're doing is taking these applications and sending them to the SBA anyway. Okay, that's really all they're doing. So they're really passing everything through. They're not really approving these, which, at least initially, by me, reading, basically the documentation that was out there, that's what they were supposed to be doing, just verifying certain things and then funding the loans. And apparently that's not what banks are doing. And because they're not sure and they don't want to get stuck with any bad loans, what they're doing is they're putting it on the SBA. So now I don't know exactly what's happening. That's just what I'm being told, that they're not actually underwriting at that level. They're just taking the application, sending it to the SBA and waiting for word back, which, like I said, was not what was intended. And obviously it's going to take a little bit more time to get things approved for you so you can get your money. All right. Or what's going to happen is that the Federal Reserve is going to just go ahead and buy all these loans, no matter whether they're forgiven or not. They're just going to go ahead and say, okay, banks, listen, there's no risk to you. We're going to go ahead and take all these loans off your hands. We'll go ahead and take them off your books. You'll still make a little bit of money. And if that's the case, then that's probably a little more towards what it was intended to do in the first place, and a little more of what I anticipated anyway. Because even though these are being sold or to the banks as zero risk loans, there's still loans. Okay, there's still loans that they have to keep on their books, and it affects their lending power. Okay, and because they're not the normal underwriting that you would that you normally would do on a regular loan, it's unfamiliar to them, and banks don't like stuff that's unfamiliar. They like stuff that's set per guidelines, per their specifications, and they want to lend to whoever they want to lend to, which they have every right to do so. Okay. Now, another one too, a question actually that came up, and I've gotten it a couple of times, and I actually got an email from somebody. I'm gonna have to review the email a little more closely, but what I got from it is that they wanted to charge me $499 to $1,000 for me to package my SBA PPP loan and send it in for me. Now, the SBA is very specific on this, okay? You are not supposed to charge any fees on PPP loans. So I cannot, if you come to me and say, hey, Ben, I want you to go ahead and package my PPP loan, I cannot charge you a dime. Not one red cent can I say, hey, pay me this much and I'll do it. Okay, there are no upfront fees on PPP loans. Now, that's different on a regular SBA 7A loan, okay? Maybe that's where the confusion's at, I don't know. But on a PPP, an agent, and what I mean by agent is, it can be a real estate agent, it can be a loan agent, it can, but it can be anybody that is acting or doing business and helping you put your application together. They cannot charge you an upfront fee. Okay, they have to rely on fees that the bank gets paid, because the bank, when they do your loan, they get paid 5%. There's a pool of money there that they can draw from that the SBA says is okay. It's up to 1% depending on the loan amount. It gets a little lesser the higher loan amount goes. Excuse me. But anyway, they cannot charge you. So there are emails that I've heard people talk about that, hey, I got this, there's this company, they charge you the up amount of money and they will get your PPP. No, they cannot do that. That is not within guidelines, against the law. Don't do it. I don't care how slick the guy is on the phone and how desperate you are, especially when you have people like me that don't charge you a dime. They can do exactly the same thing. Okay? So you want to be careful of those folks. Now, that's not to say that a CPA, okay, or a tax preparer or somebody or a lawyer can't render services to you for what they normally do for business. They can charge you for that. Okay? So they can charge you for what they normally do. A CPA can charge you for their services. However, tax preparer can charge you for their services. They just cannot specifically charge you for to package and submit your loan. They cannot do that. Now, I've gotten that question. I've seen it on different YouTube threads. People asking, well, hey, how much can an agent charge? That type of. Obviously, they're not paying attention to the rules. Because, guys, this stuff is published material that you can look up. Go to the SBA website. You can download it. And it says in there, in the IFR, that an agent cannot charge fees. Period. End of story. Okay? So if you're getting these emails, you're getting this stuff, just remember, do not pay these people. Okay? They should not charge you a dime. Like, once again, if they're a CPA or if they're a tax preparer, they can charge you for that. That's okay. Or if they're a lawyer and they're charging you for their time, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay? But if they're charging you for submission and packaging of your loan on the PPP program, you need to just hang up the phone and then call me, is what you need to do. Or call your CPA or whatnot. Now, another thing too, just real quick, I think I've said this in another video because this video is getting longer than I anticipated. I guess it's just a lot of information that's come out. If you do need help with your taxes, because one thing I noticed, especially over the last few days, is a lot of people have not gotten their taxes and things together because I have people that haven't filed taxes since 2016. And that's a long time. So in order for you to be able to qualify for a lot of these different types of loan programs and even the stimulus money, you have to get caught up. And a lot of folks out there don't have a lot of money or whatnot. But I have some people that are very reasonable, that are willing to work with you on terms that you can afford, that you can go to, you can talk to. I don't know what they'll charge because I'm not them. I'm not the guy to ask when it comes to that, okay? you have to talk with them, see what it is that you need to get done, and they will go ahead and work out as far as compensation, that type of thing. And they're going to be really fair. And as far as terms, as far as payment, they're willing to work it out with you, okay? Because they know that you need to get this done in order to get the loan. And I know a lot of you guys haven't been in business for a while. Money's really scarce, and they're willing to work with you, okay? So anyway, guys, hopefully you have a good day. What I do anticipate is things will get better. I know there's a lot of frustration out there. I know there's a lot of people kind of ticked off. I know that I know, especially since a lot of the money's already been used up. I think like 10% or something like that, or I'm sorry, if like 5% of the money's already been used up. If it keeps at that pace, we're going to be out of money like by the middle to the end of the month, as far as the 350 billion that's supposed to be allocated for this. So. Now, the White House and the government said they're going to have to go and get more money, and they're going to have to do that, okay, in order, especially if they want this thing to last to June. So hopefully there'll be some money around when you're able to apply. And if not, just hang in there. That's all you can do. There's no sense in getting frustrated and especially about things that you can't control. Let's just do the best we can. Give me a call, get in contact with me. I'll be more than happy to give you whatever information I'll give you, even if you don't intend to use me at all. That's fine. Give me a call, get in contact with me, okay? And if you need other lending vehicles, if you're not ineligible for the PPP, and if you're ineligible for the EIDL for whatever reason, or if they're just not attractive to you for whatever reason, give me a call. There are other lending programs, even if your credit is really challenged, or if you have bankruptcies, or you just have a very tough time getting any type of financing, there are programs out there for you that can get you some funding to get you ready for when you open back up, or whatever it is that you need to do with your business right now. Anyways, guys, this has been your business loan guy, and if you need business funding, you better call Ben. I'm out.